Hello, I'm Josie Wales and welcome back to part 2 of this combat mission Fortress Italy scenario, In for a Pound, where I am playing against Meat Grinder from the Few Good Men. So to quickly recap, I still intend to take the junction objective. However, 1st Platoon cannot move from the vineyard across the open ground because of the 2 Panzer IIIs on KT4 and their dominant arc of fire. So, a new plan is drawn up which is based around the mortar teams of 1st and 3rd Platoon and the trucks of the support company. Firstly, 1st Platoon will use smoke to cover their withdrawal back to the defilade offered by the stream. The support trucks will then rendezvous with 1st Platoon, who will embark and await further orders. The forward observer will call in a heavy mortar strike on the junction, while supporting sextons will continue to hit the buildings with HE. Once the 3-inch mortar barrage then lifts, the 2-inch mortar teams will lay down smoke either side of the junction objective. And upon sufficient build-up of this smoke, 3rd Platoon will attack along this axis. At the same time, 1st Platoon will be in the trucks and they will use them to get onto the objective as quickly as possible. Defilade and the junction buildings obscure line of sight from KT4 for these avenues of approach. It's a high risk strategy against an experienced opponent that has already dealt me a lot of damage, but he holds the centre objective, and if I carry on as I am, I will run out of armour before he does. On the right, another crack is had at the indestructible Panzer IV. Finally. The rightmost Stuart gets eyes on the church objective. The Sherman and the Stuart go to town on the nearby buildings. One of the 6-pounders is redeployed from the winery over to the right flank. On the left, Panzer IV is spotted moving towards the winery. Nearby, a 4th Panzer III is spotted. It looks like another attack on the winery. In the centre, 1st Platoon withdraw from the vineyard using smoke as concealment. And RV with their support trucks. The guns pound the junction buildings. Then the barrage begins on the junction objective. the 2-inch mortars start to create the smoke screen. First platoon waits. Back on the left, the German attack on the winery continues. The rightmost Sherman redeploys to support the planned imminent assault on the junction. In the centre, as the smoke screen thickens, 3rd Platoon probe towards the junction, and 1st Platoon moves out. Two of the sextons move up with them. First platoon is wiped out, and 3rd Platoon go to ground. The attack has been an abysmal failure. Smoke is redirected to allow the survivors to pull back. Strategic Update 4, 10:45 hours, 30 minutes into battle. 2nd Platoon are managing to hold the winery. 3rd Platoon have taken a beating, but are still cohesive. They are attempting to pull back away from the junction objective under cover of smoke. 1st Platoon have been annihilated. A 3-man mortar detachment and Lance Corporal Diaz from the HQ team are the only survivors. I have 1 functional Stuart and 2 gun-damaged Shermans remaining, one of which has currently been abandoned by the panicked crew. One sexton has been lost, leaving 2 functional. The 2 6-pounder guns on the left have taken some crew casualties but are still operational and are proving very valuable in the defence of the winery. The 17-pounder on the southern hill is in an overwatch position. Frustratingly, it gets glimpses of the enemy panzers but doesn't see them for long enough to get a shot off. The remaining 6-pounder has relocated to the right flank to try and make up some of the lost firepower on this flank. My opponent continues to put pressure on my left, but so far I'm holding out. The junction has held, my disastrous attack in tatters and an entire platoon lost. 3rd platoon are in a desperate retreat as I try to salvage as much of it as possible. On my right, my opponent seems content to sit on the church objective. And as I have been unable to offer any infantry support to this flank, the advance here has been halted. I am currently in a recovery situation. I am reeling from the disaster and it's not clear to me what the next move is. My main priority is to not lose 3rd platoon and get them back to a safer position. If I cannot recover 3rd platoon, my right flank will be left wide open. And if my opponent can exploit this, 2nd platoon at the winery will be boxed in and eventually lost. The defence of the winery continues. A 2-man team attempt to get within grenade range of the Panzer IV. In the centre, 3rd platoon fall back. On the right, the redeployed 6-pounder finds a position to set up. The 2-inch mortars continue to put a smoke screen down. Allowing 3rd platoon to regroup at the stream and the 6-pounder to redeploy safely. On the right, the last Stuart has a run-in with a Panzer III. And loses.
Withdraw, boys!
The abandoned Sherman is recrewed, but the gun is out of action. Using the smoke as concealment, it quickly moves to harder cover. One of the sextons redeploys to the left to support the winery defence. The 2-man team continues to creep towards the Panzer IV. Crew bails out, but the tank seems intact. A second round finishes the job.
Enemy armor spotted.
The FO calls in a 3-inch mortar strike on the German positions near the winery. In the centre, 3rd Platoon continues to regroup. But as the smoke clears, the stream doesn't offer as much concealment as was hoped. However, the clear views allow the newly deployed 6-pounder to find a target. Bringing the total German armour destroyed to 3 Panzer IVs, 1 Panzer III and a Marder. Strategic Update 5, 10:55 hours, 40 minutes into battle. 2nd Platoon are still managing to successfully defend the winery. 3rd Platoon have managed to regroup but are rattled. My armour has been reduced to 2 Shermans, neither of which have an operational main gun. Although I do have 1 Sexton left, which is fully operational, and 3 anti-tank guns, including the 17-pounder. The 2-inch mortar detachments are out of high explosive and only have a few smoke rounds left. But the FO and 3-inch mortar HQ are still able to call in fire missions from the off-map mortars. And mobility-wise, I still have 1 Bren carrier and 2 universal carriers left. 2nd Platoon have so far blunted every attack on the winery. However, at no point have any of these attacks felt like an all-out assault, more just probing attacks to keep 2nd Platoon tied up on that flank. 3rd Platoon have regrouped, and although they're not in the best of shape, I still intend to push them forward to resume pressure on the junction objective. The enemy line of advance has not changed since the previous update, and with 3rd Platoon safe from destruction, my right flank looks about as secure as it can be. The Germans continue to press the winery.
Verwundet!
3rd Platoon moved back towards the junction. And the carriers redeployed to support them. Final barrage is called in just to the right of the junction objective. My opponent and I decide to call a ceasefire. He has no real interest or need to take the winery, and I do not have the firepower or ability to take the junction objective. So we end it there. And it's a Luftwaffe minor victory. I get points for the touch objective and the winery, and Meat Grinder gets points for the church, the junction, and the touch objective on his side of the map. I get 54 points for taking out his tanks. He gets 63 points for taking out mine, bringing the total points to my 154 to his 263. And just quickly running through the casualties, I have 130 men okay, 73 killed, 46 wounded. I've lost 7 tanks, 2 armoured vehicles and 4 other vehicles. Meat Grinder has 105 men okay, 97 killed, 57 wounded, has lost 6 tanks, lost another armoured vehicle and 2 other vehicles lost. So I'd like to say very well done to Meat Grinder, and also thank you very much for being such an excellent opponent. I really did have to try and pull everything that I've learned through playing Combat Mission just to try and survive this game. But I'm happy with the result. It could have been a lot worse. Just having a look at the overhead view, my forces on the left, Meat Grinder's on the right. These are the 2 objectives that I have got points for, the touch objective and the winery. And the red rectangle showing the objectives that Meat Grinder has got points for, that being the touch objective on his side of the map, the church and the junction. So looking north from my deployment zone, you can see the enemy positions. So now just a bit of reflection on where I think I went wrong, what I think I did right. My main failing was not to get on the junction objective as quickly as possible. Not only did my opponent get to that objective quickly, he was able to spend time setting up a defense of it so that when I did attack, he was well prepared for it. Additionally, the smoke rounds from the 2-inch mortars that were designed to offer concealment for the attacking troops were inadequate for an operation of that level. They did not cover enough of the enemy's observation to allow a successful outcome. However, it's not all bad. 2nd Platoon with some 80 assets managed to hold off repeated attacks on the winery. Although I don't think it was my opponent's intent to launch a major assault on this objective, I'm still glad I held on to it so that I only suffered a minor defeat instead of a major one. Another aspect of the battle that I was happy about was the use of AT guns on the attack. Because my armour was reduced, I was forced to use AT guns to attack enemy panzers. Now this initially may seem like a foolhardy project, as tanks are more manoeuvrable, can acquire targets quicker and have better armour than guns and their crews. However, I was able to overcome those disadvantages by appropriate use of smoke. The smoke was used to conceal the movement and deployment of the guns, and once lifted gave a clear line of sight to the panzer positions. They say you don't beat your opponent by outfighting them, but by outsmarting them, and in this battle I was outsmarted by Meat Grinder. Not that I really mind. Meat Grinder is regarded as one of the best players over at the Few Good Men forums. So that just leaves me to say, if you like what you've seen, leave a like. If you want to leave a comment, leave a comment. Feel free to subscribe. I'm Josie Wales. War is hell. Thanks for watching.